Hello, everybody. It's sort of a cloudy day, but we're still looking at the ocean. It's rainy as well, but we'll see what we can do. We're reading George MacDonald's book. I have Leia with me. There's a bunny. Come here, Leia. Oh, she's all wet. All right. Let's start. George MacDonald. What is it? Leia, leave him alone. Come on. C.S. Lewis said that George MacDonald, there was no author closer to the Spirit of Christ or the Holy Spirit. And so let's just get into the book. You can start here or start at the beginning. Don't worry about starting here. There's an essay on fairy stories. I tweeted it so you can see the link. And I also put a link to people reading it on YouTube. I think it was a Catholic group, but because Tolkien was Catholic. But Tolkien wrote an essay on fairy stories and said how important they are. If you really want to understand the spiritual pattern, I uploaded Jack and the Beanstalk the other day from the Red Fairy book. My phone was reading it because I was instructed to listen to it that day. It's very instructive about everything you need to know about what's going on in this world right now. I'm like, I don't watch the news. I listen to Jack and the Beanstalk because it says God will confound this world, the foolish to the wise. All right. I'm glad you're here. Welcome. We're doing things with the flow of the Holy Spirit as much as we can, but I welcome all faith practices here. Let me get it so it's facing the ocean. If it was sunny, you'd see it all glimmering on that ocean, but it is what it is. Hopefully, let's see. Hopefully I don't have to edit that because I just don't want it to make me start over. I've got a life and kids and a job, so I can't always, I do my best to make these as beautiful as possible for us. And that's it. We get what we get, and we don't throw a fit. That's what I tell my kids. All right. This is from the 1800s. So it's free copyright. We're talking about a little boy named Diamond, speaking of the foolish things to confound the wise. I think he was a little ill at this time and with his aunt down by the ocean. We're in the chapter called At the Back of the North Wind. That's the name of the book as well. And it says how Diamond got there. If you want to know, the chapter is chapter 9. It just is, the chapter is called How Diamond Got to the Back of the North Wind. But that's how they separate it on the page. Okay, the straining of the masts, the creaking of the boom, the singing of the ropes, the banging of the blocks, as they put the vessel about, all fell in with the roaring of the wind above, the surge of the waves past her sides, and the thud with which every now and then one would strike her, while through it all Diamond could hear the gurgling, rippling, talking flow of the water against her planks as she slipped through it, lying now on this side. Oh, I forgot. So now I'm remembering, as the wind is picking up here, right? That the north wind, Diamond had asked, can I go to the back of the north wind? So at his aunt's house, when it was nighttime, the north wind, this beautiful woman who's sort of like the Holy Spirit, but I'll let you find out who she is. Here's Diamond. She came and picked him up. And they're going somewhere. Oh, she put him on a boat. Now I remember. Leia, shh, come here. Come sit with me. Come here. Come listen to the story. Come here, girl. It's okay. Okay. Come here. Okay. So he was under this thing on the boat. So the sailors and stuff didn't see him, but the North Wind said she trusted the captain and she was helping the boat go where it needed to be going. There's a lot in the last chapter, how you work with God on the spiritual path, like how God works with you, but doesn't do it all him or herself, right? God is beyond he and she. Look at Psalm 27:10. Meditate on that. It'll show you. I mean, I trust that because it showed me. It says how long. I'm like, I don't know how long it'll take God to show you that. It just depends on someone. I was taught by my supervisor, it's as hard as we resist, right? And I'm not saying you have to believe like me, but anyway. Every now and then would strike her, while through it all Diamond could hear the gurgling, rippling, talking flow of the water against her planks as she slipped through it, lying now on this side, now on that, like a subdued air running through the grand music his North Wind was making about him to keep him from tiring as they sped on towards the country at the back of her doorstep. How long this lasted, Diamond had no idea. He seemed to fall asleep sometimes. Only through the sleep he heard the sounds going on. At length, the weather seemed to get worse. The confusion and the trampling of feet grew more frequent over his head. The vessel lay over more and more on her side and went roaring through the waves, which banged and thumped at her as if in anger. All at once arose a terrible uproar. The hatch was blown off. A cold, fierce wind swept in upon him, and a long arm came with it, which laid hold of him and lifted him out. The same moment he saw the little vessel far below him righting herself. She had taken in all her sails and lay now tossing on the waves like a seabird with folded wings. It's okay. A short distance to the south lay a much larger vessel with 2 or 3 sails set, and towards it North Wind was carrying Diamond. It was a German ship on its way to the North Pole. That vessel down there will give us a lift now, said North Wind, and after that I must do the best I can. She managed to hide him amongst the flags of the big ship, which were all snugly stowed away, and on they sped towards the north. At length, one night, she whispered in his ear, "Come on deck, Diamond," and he got up at once and crept on deck. Everything looked very strange. Here and there on all sides were huge masses of floating ice, looking like cathedrals and castles and crags, while away beyond was a blue sea. "Is the sun rising or setting?" asked Diamond. "Neither or both. Which you please. I can hardly tell which myself. If he is setting now, he will be rising the next moment." "What a strange light it is," said Diamond. "I have heard that the sun doesn't go to bed all the summer in these parts. Miss Coleman told me that. I suppose he feels very sleepy, and that is why the light he sends out looks so like a dream." "That will account for it well enough for all practical purposes," said North Wind. Some of the icebergs were drifting northward. One was passing very near the ship. North Wind seized Diamond and with a single bound lighted on one of them, a huge thing with sharp pinnacles and great clefts. The same instant a wind began to blow from the south. North Wind hurried Diamond down the north side of the iceberg, stepping by its jags and splintering, for this berg had never got far enough south to be melted and smoothed by the summer sun. She brought him to a cave near the water, where she entered and, letting Diamond go, sat down as if weary on a ledge of ice. Diamond seated himself on the other side and for a while was enraptured with the color of the air inside the cave. It was a deep, dazzling, lovely blue, deeper than the deepest blue of the sky. The blue seemed to be in constant motion, like the blackness which you press when you press your eyeballs with your fingers, boiling and sparkling. But when he looked across to North Wind, he was frightened. Her face was worn and livid. "What's the matter with you, dear North Wind?" "Nothing much. I feel very faint, but you mustn't mind it, for I can bear it quite well. South wind always blows me faint. If it were not for the cool of the thick ice between me and her, I should faint altogether. Indeed, as it is, I fear I must vanish." Diamond stared at her in terror, for he saw that her form and face were growing not small but transparent, like something dissolving, not in water but in light. He could see the side of the blue cave through her very heart, and she melted away till all that was left was a pale face like the moon in the morning, with two great lucid eyes in it. "I am going, Diamond," she said. "Does it hurt you?" asked Diamond. "It's very uncomfortable," she answered, "but I don't mind it, for I shall come all right again before long. I thought I should be able to go with you all the way, but I cannot. You must not be frightened, though. Just go straight on, and you will come all right. You'll find me on the doorstep." As she spoke, her face too faded quite away. Only Diamond thought he could still see her eyes shining through the blue. When he went closer, however, he found that what he thought her eyes were only two hollows in the ice. Wow. I'm not kidding you guys. I happened, because God knows all, to see a video last night where a guy had died at, it was on a Christian show, because I don't like just watching any of those anyway, but it was on online. And he had said, when he saw the eyes of Jesus, and this was I think, African-American man, but this is just for him, for his eyes, because I think Jesus can change his eyes. But he saw blue like the ocean, and he looked, and this is what struck me, what stayed with me, of course, that like the ocean just kept going and going in his eyes. Anyway, it's so cool because I totally forgot. I haven't read this in years and years and years. Not that I remember. That he saw the ocean, like the blue, moving and swirling. It's like they described it the same. But God is above time. So God could see that I would be reading this today, all right? And so God could impress it in my heart to notice that part of that guy's story. Or maybe, because one of my friend's eyes were blue and he's passed away, or what, who knows? Who knows? You don't have to make meaning out of everything. Just give it all to God and be in the wonder of it, right? So I just trust that all these kinds of connections God has already impressed in your heart, so that this video reading of the back of the north wind encourages you and ennobles you. Whatever, we're told in that verse, whatever is good, whatever is lovely, whatever is praiseworthy, whatever is of good report, think about these things. So, in entering into the virtue of this book, it calls us to virtue, to true virtue. It's like as you get closer and near to Christ, then he burns away everything that is not Christ. In Mere Christianity, C.S. Lewis says he makes little Christs out of all of us. It's like a good infection. You want to catch this from Jesus. It's just like a purifying fire that refines you. All right. All right. Good girl, good girl. Diamond thought he could still see her eyes shining through the blue. When he went closer, however, he found that what he thought her eyes were only two hollows in the ice. North Wind was quite gone, and Diamond would have cried if he had not trusted her so thoroughly. So he sat still in the blue air of the cavern, listening to the wash and ripple of the water all about the base of the iceberg, as it sped on and on into the open sea northwards. It was an excellent craft to go with a current, for there was twice as much of it below water as above. But a light south wind was blowing too, and so it went fast. After a little while, Diamond went out and sat on the edge of his floating island and looked down into the ocean beneath him. The white sides of the berg reflected so much light below the water that he could see far down into the green abyss. Sometimes he fancied he saw the eyes of the north wind looking up at him from below, but the fancy never lasted beyond the moment of its birth, and and the time passed he did not know how, for he felt as if he were in a dream. When he got tired of the green water, he went into the blue cave, and when he got tired of the blue cave, he went out and gazed all about him on the blue sea, ever sparkling in the sun, which kept wheeling about the sky, never going below the horizon. But he chiefly gazed northwards, to see whether any land were appearing. All this time he never wanted to eat. He broke off little bits of the berg now and then, and sucked them, and he thought them very nice, for water. At length, one time he came out of his cave. He spied far off upon the horizon a shining peak that rose into the sky like the top of some tremendous iceberg, and his vessel was bearing him straight towards it. As he went on, the peak rose and rose higher and higher above the horizon, and other peaks rose after it, with sharp edges and jagged ridges connecting them. Diamond thought this must be the place he was going to, and he was right, for the mountains rose and rose till he saw the line of the coast at their feet, and at length the iceberg drove into a little bay, all round which were lofty precipices with snow on their tops and streaks of ice down their sides. The berg floated slowly up to a projecting rock. Diamond stepped on shore, and without looking behind him, began to follow a natural path, which led, which led windingly towards the top of the precipice. When he reached it, he found himself on a broad table of ice, along which he could walk without much difficulty. Before him, at a considerable distance, rose a lofty ridge of ice, which shot up into fantastic pinnacles and towers and battlements. The air was very cold and seemed somehow dead, for there was not the slightest breath of wind. In the center of the ridge before him appeared a gap, like the opening of a valley. But as he walked towards it, gazing and wondering whether that could be the way he had to take, he saw that what had appeared a gap was the form of a woman seated against the ice front of the ridge, leaning forward with her hands in her lap and her hair hanging down to the ground. "It is the north wind on her doorstep," said Diamond joyfully, and hurried on. He soon came up to the place, and there the form sat like one of the great figures at the door of an Egyptian temple, motionless, with drooping arms and head. Then Diamond grew frightened because she did not move nor speak. He was sure it was North Wind, but he thought she must be dead at last. Her face was white as the snow, her eyes were blue as the air in the ice cave, and her hair hung down straight like icicles. She had on a greenish robe, like the color in the hollows of a glacier, seen from far off. He stood up before her and gazed fearfully into her face for a few minutes before he ventured to speak. At length, with a great effort and a trembling voice, he faltered out, "North Wind?" "Well, child," said the form, without lifting its head. "Are you ill, dear North Wind?" "No, I am waiting." "What for?" "Till I am wanted." "You don't care for me any more?" said Diamond, almost crying now. "Yes, I do, only I can't show it. All my love is down at the bottom of my heart, but I feel it bubbling there." Wow. I usually wear my heart necklace, but anyway. "What do you want me to do next, dear North Wind?" said Diamond, wishing to show his love by being obedient. "What do you want to do yourself?" "I want to go into the country at your back. Then you must go through me." "I don't know what you mean." "I mean just what I say. You must walk on as if I were an open door and go right through me." "But that will hurt you." "Not in the least." "It will hurt you, though." "I don't mind that, if you tell me to do it." "Do it," said North Wind. Look. Diamond walked towards her instantly. When he reached her knees, he put out his hands to lay it on her, but nothing was there save an intense cold. He walked on, then all grew white about him, and the cold stung him like fire. He walked on still, groping through the whiteness. It thickened about him. At last it got into his heart, and he lost all sense. I would say that he fainted, only whereas in common faints all grows black about you. He felt swallowed up in whiteness. It was when he reached North Wind's heart that he fainted and fell. But as he fell, he rolled over the threshold, and it was thus that Diamond got to the back of the North Wind. Okay, this is chapter 10, at the back of the North Wind. Wow. I'm just getting my own visions, right? I have now come to the most difficult part of my story. And why? Because I do not know enough about it. And why should I not know as much about this part as with any other part? For of course, I could know nothing about the story except Diamond had told it. And why should not Diamond tell about the country at the back of the North Wind, as well as about his adventures in getting there? Because when he came back, he had forgotten a great deal. And when he did remember, what he did remember was very hard to tell. Things there are so different from things here. The people there do not speak the same language, for one thing. Indeed, Diamond insisted that there they do not speak at all. I do not think he was right, but it may well have appeared so to Diamond. The fact is, we have different reports of the place from most trustworthy people. Therefore, we are bound to believe that it appears somewhat different to different people. Wow. Just like I was saying, Jesus' eyes can change for different people. I was thinking on my way up here that it was like the Matrix, and just partially, like they're only telling part of what that story is conveying, and who knows what they put in that too. But, and I don't want to be suspicious about everything, but be discerning always, even whatever I'm saying, always be discerning. But Morpheus said to Neo, like that the oracle only spoke what that person needed to hear. It's like God told Moses, let my people, go tell Pharaoh, let my people go. And, who knows what he told Aaron when he was going out to meet Moses, that he would be the mouthpiece for Moses? I don't know. But he told Moses, you will meet your brother Aaron on your way. And, it's like God will give each of us our part, what we need to know to stay faithful on our journey. And it's still going to be very challenging. But I like this guy named Kevin Zadai says, God's love language is obedience, right? And so learning how to obey and ask God, help me discern. By your light, we see light. Anyway. Indeed, Diamond insisted there. Okay, different. Yeah, therefore we are bound to believe that it appears somewhat different to different people. This is if you want a Christian source, it's in Lord of the Rings as well. When they go into Lothlorien, that's what's being shown to me, is when they enter in, Boromir is like, I don't want to go in this place. And then Aragorn and all of them were saying, well, isn't it? And Frodo said later to Faramir, it's sort of something like, you bring in there your own fears, and they're mirrored back to you, Anyway. Samwise saw something different than Frodo when he looked in the water. Oh, hi. Is this like a blanket for you, or you want to get under? Come here. I brought this, and I didn't know why I was carrying this giant jacket of mine, but I just saw it. It has a rainbow, right? God gave us the rainbow to promise victory. Victory. But he wasn't going to destroy everything again. He gives us the promise. That was one of the covenants. Jesus said, a new commandment I give you, to love as I have loved you. That's where we are. That's agape love. That's a tall order. It always challenges you, and he shows us how to do it. He didn't just leave us. All right. Let me remember. Okay, I'm just making sure I can get back in time. The people, all, however, agree in a general way about it. I will tell you something of what two very different people have reported, both of whom knew more about it, I believe, than Herodotus. Herodotus, yeah. He was speaking of him later. He's like, I wish Herodotus hadn't written something, but so good. We're going to hear from two different sources more. Okay, girl, come here. Sit here if you want to get warm with my body. Come here. It's cold up here. One of them speaks from his experience, for he visited the country. The other from the testimony of a young peasant girl who came back from it for a month's visit to her friends. The former was a great Italian of noble family who died more than 500 years ago. The latter, a Scotch shepherd who died not 40 years ago. Come here. Wow. The Italian then informs us that he had to enter the country through a fire so hot. I wonder if he's talking about Dante. I'm not sure. Dante got a lot of his from Matilda of Magdeburg. That's who I'm reading. I think for the 5th time I'm reading through her book, because she says you have to read it 9 times to understand it. I might be on my 4th. I wrote it in the back. If you know my mystic book by Evelyn Underhill, one of her best friends, Lucy Menzies, I think is her last name, went right before she died. She didn't know she was going to die. She went all the way, I don't know where, I forget where. Switzerland or Sweden or somewhere though. No, I think it was in a German language somewhere. Some remote place where they had Matilda of Magdeburg's book. The one real copy of it. Or anyway, and so she translated it from the German to English for us, and had to have really small print to fit it. Anyway, it's amazing if you're called to that book. And Lucy edited it, and oh, sorry, girl, I didn't mean to. I was trying to pick up the jacket, but I got her hair. Come here, it's okay. Come here, it's okay. Sorry. All right. So let's hear what the peasant girl and the Italian. Come here. You want to sit up here? She loves my blanket. You're so dirty, though. That's okay. That's okay. Come here. Come here. There you go. Okay. Maybe it's someone else. Let's see. The Italian then informs us that he had to enter the country through a fire so hot that he would have thrown himself into boiling glass to cool himself. This was not Diamond's experience, but then Durante, that was the name of the Italian, okay? And it means lasting. For his books will last as long as there are enough men in the world worthy of having them. Durante was an elderly man, and Diamond was a little boy, and so their experience must be a little different. The peasant girl, on the other hand, fell fast asleep in a wood and woke in the same country. In describing it, Durante says that the ground everywhere smelt sweetly, and that a gentle, even-tempered wind, which never blew faster or slower, breathed in his face as he went, making all the leaves point one way, not so as to disturb the birds in the tops of the trees, but on the contrary, sounding a bass to their song. Boom, boom, boom. He describes also a little river which was so full that its little waves, as it hurried along, bent the grass full of red and yellow flowers, through which it flowed. He says that the purest stream in the world, beside this one, would look as if it were mixed with something that did not belong to it, even although it was flowing ever in the brown shadow of the trees, and neither sun nor moon could shine upon it. He seems to imply that it is always the month of May in that country. I'm hearing that, I've got sunshine song. It's even when it's cold outside, I've got the month of May. My girl. Anyway, that song has a lot of meaning to me. God knows. Anyway, and that song Blue Skies Shining at Me that Ella Fitzgerald sings. If it was, I think it's blue over there, look. It looks like the sun is gonna come out. Nothing but blue skies. Do I see? Gray, all of them gone. Nothing but blue from now on, right? I'm just quoting that song. It would be out of place to describe here the wonderful sights he saw, for the music of them is in another key from that of this story, and I shall therefore only add from the account of this traveler that the people there are so free and so just and so healthy that every one of them has a crown like a king. The kings and queens, right? Every one of them, women and men. And a mitre like a priest, right? I understand now why they're saying this. Just because, I only got this week, is look in the last couple days at the passage where Jesus is talking about when the men are trying to trick him and they say this woman was married to one man, and then her brother he died and she married her brother, because that's how they would do that back in the day to carry on the lineage, and 7 of them, so on, just like there's 7 stars and 7 churches in the book of Revelation. I won't go on with that, and 7 colors in the rainbow, right? And so they asked Jesus, who will she be married to in the kingdom to come? And he said that she will be like the angels, who are neither given to marriage or taken. Anyway, I think somehow that they're like beyond gender somehow. Kind of like they tried to show the elves but ask God about all of this, right? Ask God. But we're all called to be kings and priests, and we're all firstborn sons now in Christ. And it's still beyond gender. It's hard for us to understand beyond gender, because that's, we're in the created world. Look at that hawk up there. We're in the created world. And God is uncreated before all of this. So we experience. Anyway, it's a lot. This is why this book edifies us, because it takes us into this realm. It doesn't explain everything, just like Jesus's parables. But he explains some of them. You're meant to know something. You're meant to search out this wisdom. Hold on, some people get obsessive and don't want it crooked. Whatever. We'll deal. All right, we get what we get. All right, so I shall therefore only add the account of this traveler. But the people there are so free and so just and so healthy, and every one of them has a crown like a king and a mitre like a priest. What is it, Leah? I don't want to say yet what I saw the other day. Come here. The peasant girl, Kamini was her name, Kilmene. Kamini? He's Scottish, so Kamini? I don't know how to say it with a Scottish accent. I only know like a British accent, a little bit. My friends were like, Charlie is on the phone. And I'm like, what? Why are you speaking like that? Because they could hear his accent, I couldn't. Peasant girl, Kilmene was her name, could not report such grand things as Durante, for as the shepherd says, telling her story, and as I tell diamonds, Kilmene had been, she knew not where, and Kilmene had seen what she could not declare. Kilmene had been where the cock never crew, where the rain never fell and the wind never blew, but it seemed as the harp of the sky had rung, and the airs of heaven played round her tongue, when she spoke of the lovely form she had seen, and a land where sin had never been, a land of love and a land of light, without in sun or moon or night, where the river swayed a living stream, and the light a pure and cloudless beam, the land of vision it would seem, and still an everlasting dream. Wow. The last 2 lines are the shepherd's own remark and a matter of opinion, but it is clear, I think, that Kilmene must have described the same country as Durante saw, though not having his experience, she could neither understand nor describe it so well. Wow, I just quoted either yesterday or the day before from Arthur O'Shaughnessy. We are the music makers, we are the dreamers of dreams. Something by Lone Sea Breakers. It's like forsaken of the world, it seems. Yet we are the movers and the shakers of the whole world, it seems. I'm saying it all wrong, but it's called the Ode of Arthur O'Shaughnessy. It's so good. Forlorn. Rejected by the world. And yet we're the ones with the visions. It's okay. It doesn't matter. It's not victims. It's beautiful to get to see this vision. It's such an honor. No matter how many people make fun of you and call you an idiot. It's all worth it. But you have to choose that yourself. Jesus said you must count the cost, right? If you can't follow this narrow path because you don't want to be called an idiot, then I feel sorry for you. You're missing out on your soul's eternal life. Like, Jesus saying, what does it profit a man if you gain, or a woman, if you gain the whole world but lose your soul? And Kierkegaard wrote, and what does he lose if he loses this whole world yet gains his soul? Something like that. He said the opposite must also be true. I remember that. My friend Elliot Smith and I used to talk about Kierkegaard, either or. And I have a book called Purity of Heart is to Will One Thing, and I don't think I've ever finished reading that one. All right. Now I must give you such fragments of recollection as Diamond was able to bring back with him. When he came back to himself after he fell, he found himself at the back of the North Wind. North Wind herself was nowhere to be seen, neither was there a vestige of snow or of ice within sight. The sun too had vanished, but that was no matter, for there was plenty of a certain still rayless light. Where it came from he never found out, but he thought it belonged to the country itself. Sometimes he thought it came out of the flowers, which were very bright, but had no strong color. He said the river, for all agree that there is a river there, flowed not only through, but also, oh wow, I've heard and I've had experience myself and visions of going over a rainbow bridge, but I won't go into that because I don't want anyone to go off course. But that's so strange that I have like 6 jackets in the back of my car that this reminded me of a shepherd, and we were just reading the John chapter where Jesus is saying, I am the good shepherd. My sheep hear my voice. I love it. I love when Jesus declares that for us, right? We can trust like Diamond, the North Wind, trusted the North Wind. I am the good shepherd. My sheep hear my voice. He will keep teaching us how to quiet our hearts so we can hear what the scripture is speaking to us. You can read the scripture. Someone said, you want a word? Read the Bible. Like, there's your word. Read it. Let it get deep into your heart. Meditate on it day and night. Psalm 1, 1, and 2. You can read that. It tells you how. Anyway, sometimes he thought it came out of the flowers. He saw the river. And for all agree that I just forgot that there's the bridge until he said that there's a river. I'm like, well, there must be a river because I walked over the bridge. But anyway, flowed not only through, but over grass. Its channel, instead of being rock, stones, pebbles, sand, or anything else, was of pure meadow grass, not overlong. He insisted that it did not sing tunes. Listen to the birds. In people's ears, it sung tunes in their heads, in proof of which I may mention that in the troubles which followed, Diamond was often heard singing, and when asked what he was singing, he would answer, one of those tunes the river at the back of the North Wind sung. And I may as well say at once that Diamond never told these things to anyone, but, no, I had better not say who it was, but whoever it was told me, and I thought it would be well to write them for my child readers. Or childlike. Jesus says we must be like a child to enter into the kingdom of heaven, of God. We cannot enter it unless we are like a child. So here you are, right? You're well on your way. He could not say he was happy there. Come on, Leah. Come on. For he had neither his father nor mother with him, but he felt so still and quiet and patient and contented that as far as the mere feeling went, it was something better than mere happiness. Nothing went wrong at the back of the north wind, neither was anything quite right, he thought. Only everything was going to be right someday. His account disagreed with that of Durante and agreed with that of Kilmeny, in this, that he protested there was no wind there at all. I fancy he missed it. At all events, we could not do without wind. It all depends on how big our lungs are, whether the wind is too strong for us or not. When the person he told about is asked him whether he saw anybody he knew there, he answered, only a little girl belonging to the gardener, who thought he had lost her, but was quite mistaken, for there she was, safe enough, and was to come back someday as I came back, if they would only wait. Okay, so let me read what that says again. When the person he told about it asked him whether he saw anybody he knew there, he answered, only a little girl belonging to the gardener. Now, Mary Magdalene thought Jesus was a gardener, right? But I'm not sure what this is. Who thought he had lost her, but was quite mistaken, for there she was, safe enough, and was to come back someday as I came back, if they would only wait. Wow. Did you talk to her, Diamond? No, nobody talks there. They only look at each other and understand everything. It's like telepathy, right? You just understand. And if you want to see an example of this in the Bible, then some Jewish people say, and Jewish people that have become Christians say, it was the Feast of Booths. So they would make booths for people. And that when Jesus had the Mount of Transfiguration, Peter could just tell that, he said, do you want us to make booths for Moses and Elijah? Like, you just have a knowing. You have a knowing that that's who it was. And so it's like a Feast of Booths. It's like, do you want me to now test all of this yourself? It could be shown to different people in different ways for different reasons. But this is how it came across to me at one instance. But I keep my hand open for however God wants to interpret it in my life circumstances in the moment. But it is like that. There's a picture of this knowing. And sort of like the knowing that he knew he could just walk on water if Jesus called him. He's like, okay, I'll just do that then. Right? Anyway, there has to be examples of this in Scripture. I have another one, but I don't want to use that one. Anyway, because there are. Anyway, I won't go into it just in case you're listening with your kids. It's in the Bible, but I don't want to talk about it right now. When the person no, they just look at each other and understand everything. Is it cold there? No. Is it hot? No. What is it then? You never think about such things there. What a queer place it must be. It's a very good place. Do you want to go back again? No, I don't think I have ever left it. I feel it here, somewhere, right? It's in him. Did the people there look pleased? Yes, quite pleased, only a little sad. Then they didn't look glad. They looked as if they were waiting to be gladder someday. Wow. Maybe it's like Abraham's bosom he's describing. Rock of my soul in the bosom of Abraham. Oh, rock of my soul. Uh-oh, someone just said something. Hopefully, anyway, this was how Diamond used to answer questions about that country. And now I will take up the story again and tell you how he got back to this country. So this is chapter 11. 11, turn it up to 11. How Diamond got home again. When one at the back of the north wind wanted to know how things were going with anyone he loved, he had to go to a certain tree climb the stem, and sit down in the branches. In a few minutes, if he kept very still, he would see something at least of what was going on with the people he loved. One day, when Diamond was sitting in this tree, he began to long very much to get home again, and no wonder, for he saw his mother crying. Durante says that the people there may always follow their wishes, because they never wish but what is good. Diamond's wish was to go home, and he would fain follow his wish. But how was he to set about it? If he could only see North Wind. But the moment he had got to her back, she was gone altogether from his sight. He had never seen her back. She might be sitting on her doorstep still, looking southwards and waiting, white and thin and blue-eyed, until she was wanted. Or she might have again become a mighty creature with power to do with that which was demanded of her, and gone far away upon many missions. She must be somewhere. Oh, look, here's Diamond. It's still in his night clothes there, right? However, she must be somewhere, however. He could not go home without her, and therefore he must find her. She could never have intended to leave him always away from his mother. If there had been any danger of that, she would have told him and given him his choice about going, for North Wind was right honest. How to find North Wind, therefore, occupied all his thoughts. In his anxiety about his mother, he used to climb the tree every day and sit in its branches. However many of the dwellers there did so, they never incommoded one another. And I don't know how to explain that word. You can look it up. They never got in each other's way. For the moment one got into the tree, he became invisible to everyone else, and it was such a wide-spreading tree that there was room for every one of the people of the country in it, without the least interference with each other. Sometimes, on getting down, two of them would meet at the root, and then they would smile to each other more sweetly than at any other time, as much as to say, "Ah, you've been up there too," right? Some people say Jesus is the tree of life, and he died on a tree, and the curse came through a tree. Taking it at the wrong time in the wrong manner before it was allowed, right? And then there was the tree of life. Anyway, all these trees. It reminds me, there's a song by a guy named, I think, David Gray, called Back in the World Again. And he's talking about a tree the whole song. I love that song. I love roller skating to that song. It's like about coming back to life again. Well, we'll see. I don't want to get ahead of the book. One day he was sitting on one of the outer branches of the tree, looking southwards after his home. Far away was a blue shining sea, dotted with gleaming and sparkling specks of white. There were the icebergs. Nearer he saw a great range of snow-capped mountains, and down below him the lovely meadow grass of the country, with the stream flowing and flowing through it, away towards the sea. As he looked, he began to wonder, for the whole country lay beneath him like a map, and that which was near him looked just as small as that which he knew to be miles away. The ridge of ice which encircled it appeared but a few yards off, and no larger than the row of pebbles with which a child will mark out the boundaries of the kingdom he has appropriated on the sand shore, right? When you're playing with shells and making sand castles, right? He thought he could distinguish the vapory form of North Wind, seated as he had left her on the other side. Hastily he descended the tree, and to his amazement found that the map or model of the country still lay at his feet. If you want to know more about this map as well, C.S. Lewis, he says George MacDonald was his master, talks about it in the book Mere Christianity. He talks about you can have this grand experience of God, and that is more like God than dry theology. But you also need the map. The theology is like the map. He's like, you can't get to the Pacific Island, to America, by just having this grand feeling of God. You have to get in a boat and follow a map and get there. And so it's like theology and doctrines and everything help us, even though they're like a piece of paper with colored pencil, They're not like the one-on-one experience of God, but we're given both for a reason, just like the Word became flesh and dwelt among us. Anyway. So the map was right in front of him. Let's see. The map or model of the country still lay at his feet. He stood in it. With one stride, he crossed the river. With another, he had reached the ridge of ice. With the third step, over its peak, and sank wearily down at the north wind's knees. For there she sat on her doorstep, because she can't go behind herself. She said that last chapter. The peaks of the great ridge of ice were as lofty as ever behind her, and the country at her back had vanished from Diamond's view. North Wind was as still as Diamond had left her. Her pale face was white as the snow, and her motionless eyes were as blue as the caverns in the ice. But the instant Diamond touched her, her face began to change like that of one waking from sleep. Light began to glimmer from the blue of her eyes. Here she is, look. I don't know where Diamond is in this. A moment more, and she laid her hand on Diamond's head and began playing with his hair. Diamond took hold of her hand and laid his face to it. She gave a little start. "How very alive you are, child," she murmured. "Come nearer to me." By the help of the stones all around, he clambered up beside her and laid himself against her bosom. Oh, just like John, the beloved, the disciple. And I read in Christian ancient books that he's the cousin of Jesus, but you don't have to believe that. But some people have recorded it, and so that he was young and maybe anyway, beloved, right? And that's he lived so long and wrote perhaps after the destruction of Jerusalem after 70 AD. I don't know all of that. Anyway, I just have been given impression. Anyway, she gave a great sigh, slowly lifted her arms, and slowly folded them about him until she clasped him close. Yet a moment, and she roused herself and came quite awake, and the cold of her bosom, which had pierced Diamond's bones, vanished. "Have you been sitting here ever since I went through you, dear North Wind?" asked Diamond, stroking her hand. "Yes," she answered, looking at him with her old kindness. "Aren't you very tired?" "No, I've often had to sit longer." "Do you know how long you've been?" "Oh, years and years," answered Diamond. "You have just been 7 days." Look, there's 7 again, returned North Wind. "I thought I had been 100 years, exclaimed Diamond. "Yes, I dare say," replied North Wind. "You've been away from here 7 days, but how long you may have been in there is quite another thing. Behind my back and before my face, things are so different. They don't go at all by the same rule." And if you read about Gandalf in The Lord of the Rings, when he fell, he says the same. He says like lifetimes and lifetimes he spent in that place before he came back as Gandalf the White instead of Gandalf the Grey. "I'm very glad," said Diamond, after thinking a while. "Why?" asked North Wind. "Because I've been such a long time there and such a little while away from my mother. Why, she won't be expecting me home from Sandwich yet. No, but we mustn't talk any longer. I've got my orders now, and we must be off in a few minutes." Next moment, Diamond found himself sitting alone on the rock. North Wind had vanished. A creature like a great bumblebee or cockchafer flew past his face. I don't know what kind of bird that is. I'm not British. Anyway. I didn't grow up in England. Flew past his face. So I might be genetically, but I'm not going to talk about that because who knows what they do with those things. Anyway. Someone said they sent their dog's DNA in and they said, "You are of this origin." I don't know. But it could be neither, for there were no insects amongst the ice. It passed him again and again, flying in circles round him, and he concluded that it must be the North Wind herself, no bigger than Tom Thumb, when his mother first put him in the nutshell lined with flannel. But she was no longer vapory and thin. She was solid, although tiny. A moment more, and she perched on his shoulder. "Come along, Diamond," she said in his ear. and in the smallest and highest of treble voices, "It is time we were setting out for Sandwich." That's the beach town by London. I don't know where it is. Diamond could just see her by turning his head towards his shoulder as far as he could, but only with one eye, for his nose came between her and the other. "Won't you take me in your arms and carry me?" he said in a whisper, for he knew she did not like... "Oh, won't you take me in your arms and carry me?" he said in a whisper, for he knew she did not like a loud voice when she was small. "Ah, you ungrateful boy," returned North Wind, smiling. "How dare you make game of me? Yes, I will carry you, but you shall walk a bit for your impertinence first. Come along." I don't know how he's impertinent, but we'll find out. She jumped from his shoulder, but when Diamond... Wow, it says Desmond. It looks like it's just a printing error in my book. Looked for her upon the ground. Not printing, but, someone missed a misspelling or something. They didn't have spell check back then that automatically makes weird things. They're all over my book. I have to keep correcting it back because it corrects it to the weirdest words. Anyway, I'm working on a book on trauma right now. I'm editing it. I hope to get it out soon. If you wish to say a prayer for me, say a prayer to God, to the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. If not, then don't. I don't know. I'm specific. I am specific about that. When Diamond looked for her upon the ground, he could see nothing but a little spider with long legs that made its way over the ice toward the south. It ran very fast indeed for a spider, but Diamond ran a long way before it, and then waited for it. It was up with him sooner than he had expected, however, and it had grown a good deal. And the spider grew and went faster and faster, till at once Diamond discovered that it was not a spider but a weasel, and away glided the weasel, and away went Diamond after it, and it took all the run there was in him to keep up with the weasel. And the weasel grew and grew, till at once Diamond saw that the weasel was not a weasel but a cat, and away went the cat and Diamond after it. And when he had run half a mile, he found the cat waiting for him, sitting up and washing her face, not to lose time. And away went the cat again, and Diamond after it. But the next time he came up with the cat was not a cat, but a hunting leopard, and the hunting leopard grew into a jaguar, all covered with spots like eyes, and the jaguar grew to a Bengal tiger, and at none of them was Diamond afraid, for he had been at the North Wind's back, and he could be afraid of her no longer, whatever she did or grew. Well. And the tiger flew over the snow in a straight line for the south, growing less and less to Diamond's eyes, till it was only a black speck upon the whiteness, and then it vanished altogether. And now Diamond felt he would rather not run any further, and that the ice had got very rough. Besides, he was near the precipices and bounded the sea, so he slackened his pace to a walk, saying aloud to himself, "When North Wind has punished me enough for making game of her, she will come back to me. I know she will, for I can't go much farther without her." "You dear boy, it was only in fun. Here I am," said North Wind's voice behind him. Diamond turned and saw her, as he best liked to see her, standing beside him, a tall lady. "Where's the tiger?" he asked, for he knew all the creatures from a picture book that Miss Coleman had given him. "But of course," he added, "you were the tiger. I was puzzled and forgot. I saw it such a long way off before me, and there you were behind me. It's so odd, you know." "It must look very odd to you, Diamond. I see that, but it's no more odd to me than to break an old pine in two." Wow. "Well, that's odd enough," remarked Diamond. "So it is, I forgot. Well, none of these things are odder to me than it is to you to eat bread and butter." "Well, that's odd too when I think of it," persisted Diamond. "I should just like a slice of bread and butter. I'm afraid to say how long how long it seems to me, that is, since I had anything to eat." "Come then," said North Wind, stooping and holding out her arms. "You shall have some bread and butter very soon. I am glad to find you want some." Diamond held up his arms to meet hers and was safe upon her bosom. North Wind bounded into the air. Her tresses began to lift and rise and spread, the stream and flow and flutter, and with a roar from her hair and an answering roar from one of the great glaciers beside them, whose slow torrent tumbled 2 or 3 icebergs at once into the waves at their feet, North Wind and Diamond went flying southwards. Who Met Diamond at Sandwich? We'll pick up back here on chapter 12. Well, I'm glad we got to chapter 11. And so you see, well, you'll see, it says the mother, you know, "What's the matter, mother?" he said to his mom. "Oh, Diamond, my darling, you've been so ill." She sobbed. "No, mother dear, I've only been at the back of the north wind." "I thought you were dead," said his mother. But that moment, the doctor came in, all right? So we know that he visited the far country, but God brought him back in the story, all right? I wish you so much love. Thanks for joining me. Share this with like-minded people. I appreciate it because it makes this channel grow so that all of us can grow in these deep ways that the world seems to forget. Much love.